That was pretty exciting. We got a sign of life here in this test that we just did. Now, not saying it's any panic for immediate concern right now, but it is a cause for further investigation because there is some signs of a bacteria growth in here that does lead to the Legionella strain. So the ukulele sounds a little sad today, and there's a reason for that. We're gonna be talking about a pretty tough topic today, Adam. This is gonna be a hard one.
It's becoming a hot topic in the industry, and it's obviously something not to tiptoe around. So I'm glad we're addressing it today. We're gonna have some nice guests on to offer some insight and expertise.
Yeah. So let's. Today's topic for everyone is going to be Legionella. We're going to talk about it in some pretty good detail, and we have some great guests with us today. Please welcome to the show Aaron Besseling and Kevin Cherewaty. I did my best to pronounce that last name correct, Kevin. I hope that I did okay.
It's perfect. Perfect.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate you. So thank you both for joining us on the show today. We're excited to talk about Legionella. What I'd like to do first, let's hear who you are, kind of what you do. We'll start with you, Aaron. You want to give us a little bio on who you are, what you do, and what we're doing here?
Amazing. Yeah, no, thanks for having me on. So my name's Aaron Besseling. I'm the president of the ASHRAE Hamilton chapter currently, and a project manager at Besseling Mechanical. So we're mechanical contractors and do installations of cooling towers and a whole bunch of other fun stuff. And yeah, when this news broke about the outbreak, you were my number one person to call and said we got to do something on this. So I'm excited to be a part of it. Thank you so much.
And you had just mentioned me before we hop into this. What is the current count for Legionella cases in Hamilton?
In Hamilton, in this outbreak, it's up. It was at 13. Now it's at 19 as of this morning. So it's
this growing. Is madness.
And honestly, madness. I'm recording in Stony Creek, the east end of Stony Creek, and they said, it's the east end of Stony Creek you got to worry about. So if I'm sick tomorrow, if I'm not in the office, you know where to call. So
okay, understood. Well, Aaron, thanks so much for joining us, and thanks so much for reaching out earlier in the week to kind of get on the same page here. It means the world to me to spread this information. Now, next in line, Kevin and I met a while ago. Kevin, I'm excited to have a chat with you, man. Why don't you go ahead and tell us who you are and what you do?
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show today. It's a really important subject, and it's been really important to me over the last 14 years I've been in business. My name's Kevin Cherewaty, and I'm owner of Heavy Cooling Tower Services. We maintain and clean cooling towers, within Southern Ontario here. And, I've been working with cooling towers 13, 14 years. And, I've had about a couple of bouts of Pontiac fever from, dirty cooling towers. But what I see in the industry is unacceptable for the way cooling towers are actually cared for. And there's got to be accountability and testing. Is what we need to do. We need to make people aware of what's happening, because this is all throughout our communities. So thank you for having me on, and I appreciate being a part of this.
Happy to have you.
It's great to have you guys both on the pod, and it's time we have some discussion about this. And it comes down to a few things when we're talking about Legionella, but maintenance obviously being a big one. But it starts even sooner than that. It's got to start in the design side. And how do we design to mitigate Legionella? How do we take this into consideration before it comes to the maintenance side? The maintenance is a huge part of it, right? But that's where we need to get to. So it's good to have you guys on, and thanks for coming.
Why don't we start off here? I have been dealing with Legionella since I've been dealing with hot water, so a good long time, but I've never kind of got it as involved as I did recently. What I want to do for the listeners at home, and Aaron, Kevin, feel free to chime in at any time on this one here, but I kind of want to give a 101, a little background on Legionella. So 1976, for those that don't know, was the first case of recorded Legionella. Which is interesting because technically Legionella occurs naturally in fresh water. It's a bacteria that you can't really get away from. It exists. So in 1976, when we had our first recorded outbreak in Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love, there was a Legionnaires convention, and 100 and I think it was 189 people got sick at that convention. 29 of them died, and it took 6 months to find the culprit. Interestingly enough, the very first thing that they thought it was a terrorist attack. That's where they thought it was kind of coming from. And then 6 months later, it was discovered that a cooling tower nearby was the culprit for the bacteria that had infected these folks. And that's what's really interesting with regards to the introductions of Legionella, was that we learned pretty quickly that, and Aaron, you kind of mentioned that you're in the south end of Stony Creek. I don't know how far you are from cooling towers, but this stuff can travel. The largest recorded travel that it's done so far is up to 6 miles from cooling tower to infection, which is just, it's unbelievable how this thing spreads and grows and how difficult it is to track down. So in the beginning, as we're kind of looking at Legionella, where it come from, how we discovered it, it took a long time for us to kind of get our heads wrapped around it. Again, this is 1976. Now, fast forward, Kevin, you just mentioned that you got into the industry about 14, 15 years ago. So that's puts us at about 2010-ish, roughly 2012. Why don't you give me your current history of how Legionellas has grown, adapted, how the industry has worked with that in the last 15 years that you've been doing business in this field?
Yeah, well, I believe right now there's 90 cases just this year, 2026, that they're saying in Ontario, which is crazy because, when I first started the company, I didn't have any awareness of Legionella. I would see black mold and green mold or green algae in towers. And, I'd throw a mask on, but, sometimes it didn't matter. I'd still feel sick. So I think I've had Pontiac fever at least half a dozen times. But what I'm finding is because of decreased maintenance budgets, and when maintenance companies are going into buildings, especially residential buildings, I find those maintenance budgets have been cut so much that it's hard to maintain the operating systems within the buildings. And then maintenance companies will throw an apprentice in the tower to kind of clean up the debris on the bottom of it. But
Poor apprentices.
Or
Get in there and
apprentices.
clean
But
that
you know
thing.
what? We need to be provided proper budgets for proper cleanings of these towers.
100%. Yeah. I same sort of thing. Like when we hand over a building, people ask, hey, who should we grab for maintenance? And I'll throw some names out, whoever you go through. And then when it comes to water treatment, I'm like, you call this guy? I will sit here and wait until you call him. You know what I mean? Like, there you go.
So as the current chapter president for ASHRAE in your area, can you kind of unpack what that means to you as far as like what you want to do for your chapter members, and then like what questions can you best ask that this panel here can help you answer, so we can all get a little better at, as Kevin mentioned and Adam mentioned, the mitigation and the solutions to this stuff here.
Absolutely. Yeah, the Legionella disease is really, it's our industry specific, right? Like Matt, when you've given a presentation to our chapter on Legionella prevention, and it was extremely informative. And one of the things that you stuck out that you mentioned was you could take a cup of Legionella and you could drink it and you could be fine. It's only when the airborne side of it where it becomes such a huge concern. So it's really specific to our industry. It's our disease. It's our kind of burden to bear, right? Which is kind of specific. So there is an investigation, right? The public health wants to find the source of the contaminant, and I know that process is a month-long process, or a months-long process, I should say. For building operators in the area, how will they be ready for that call? You know what I mean? I'm assuming public health is going around to the buildings where the sicknesses are coming around and saying, okay, we want some data, we want some information to try and hope down. What are they looking for? What should building operators be looking to gather, sort of thing?
That's a great question. Kevin, do you want to spearhead that one?
Yeah, public health is doing a good job going around, checking out locations and that, doing their due diligence to find out where this outbreak started. But I mean that, we need the building owners to be proactive. If public health contacts you as a building owner, you need to be prepared and have your water treatment records handy. You should have testing. of your cooling tower, which I know Hamilton's got a database of registering their cooling towers. I'm just not sure how their testing records are with history, and have your maintenance logs ready for public health, because they're going to be combing through that stuff, looking to make sure that your cooling tower is being maintained. The company I was at yesterday was being very proactive, and we quoted them, a couple of cleanings and some monthly test kits for testing their cooling towers.
And is that something that a contractor like yourself needs to be certified in doing?
Well, we don't have to be certified in doing the rapid test, but the rapid tests that we have are very nice, because what they show you is a yes or a no. So if you get a yes, what we're going to do is we're going to do a pinching test right away, and we're going to get that right in. So that way we got documentation of what's happening in the site. If there's a lot of people on site, what next steps we have to take, and put an actual plan in motion, instead of things just continuing as normal and infecting the community. So,
Right.
It's better to be proactive on this and ensure that we have some public safety.
You both kind of spent a good amount of time there on cooling towers, and I appreciate that. That is where the vast majority of these cases come from. But Adam, you and I were just chatting about this recently. Why don't you expand upon the Legionella cases, or not Legionella cases, but the Legionella potential in closed potable systems?
Yeah. So obviously cooling towers are a big issue when it comes to Legionella, and something that's addressed right away. But from the potable side, through domestic hot and cold water, believe it or not, you can have Legionella and be exposed to it through that as well. So as we mentioned earlier, I believe Aaron mentioned this. It's contracted through water droplets as a vapor, breathing it in, not drinking it. Like as Matthew's noted before, you can drink a glass of water that has Legionella in it, you'll be okay. But when you breathe it in, it gets into your lungs and it affects your respiratory system that way. So through a potable hot water system, there's a couple ways. If you're not keeping your tank type water heater where you're storing hot water at 140 degrees Fahrenheit, bacteria and Legionella can build up in that system. And you might think like, okay, it's water. How's that? How am I going to breathe that in? Well, if you're having a shower, that water can turn to steam and you're breathing that steam in, right? There's different applications like that. You could be in a steam room. You could be standing over top of a pot of boiling water on the stove, like different options that can expose you to that. And as Matthew said, those water droplets can travel. So that's one spot. The other spot that I've noted with the healthcare professionals on the engineering side, they're seeing hot water migration back into the cold lines, and that becoming an issue as well. So where you have hot water and it's migrating into your cold line, now your cold line isn't so cold anymore, and it's just warm enough to start creating bacteria and Legionella and all kinds of fun things within the pipe. So whether it's in the tank where you're storing water, or whether it's in the pipes where there's stored water, there are both options. Now, again, I talked about the design side having to take this into consideration when they're designing, and there's different products out there that can mitigate that risk through design on the initial install. So whether it be a automatic balancing valve in the system where it balances the system so that your water stays constant with your temperature. There's a product out there that's an electronic mixing valve that can address this issue. There's lots of products out there that are made specifically with this in mind.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked a lot about cooling towers, but there's other ways for that Legionella to enter the atmosphere, the cities, different things like that. There was an outbreak in London, Ontario, where I live, actually not too long ago as well. So it's definitely something I'm really glad we're talking about, and I don't think it's fully understood. It's funny, Matthew and I were talking the other day, and we're kind of just bouncing some ideas off each other for this pod, and This one's kind of funny. So you bring Legionella up to people, and it goes one of two ways. They want to talk to you about it, and they really want to understand it, or they want to like help address the issues, or they want to completely avoid the conversation. It's like you're saying a swear word to them, or like they want to avoid the conversation entirely. And I don't know if any of you guys are like fans of Fight Club, but this is the analogy I use. Like nobody talks about Fight Club, right? And that's kind of what it was like with some of these people I'm talking to about Legionella. It's like, oh, don't say that word. What are you talking? Why are we talking about that? Don't say that out loud. So that's that was a little chuckle Matthew and I had the other day. It was like the Fight Club, right? People don't want to talk about it sometimes, but we really do need to talk about it and address it. And I think we're a step in the right direction here today. So
Adam, I
for sure.
want to pick up on something you said there. So on the water migration, it's a great point. It's something a lot of people don't think about. And the biggest culprit that we find in the field is odd mop sinks where they'll open up the hot and cold, and then they'll control right at the tap on one of those hoses sort of things. Every single time we have a cross connection, it's never usually our backflows. It's usually always that migration at the mop sink. So it's the first thing we check, and it's something that is usually, you can design for it, but the maintenance people do what they want to do, right? So it's the first thing to check if people are having that sort of concern.
The Legionella inside of the building is kind of still new for people to kind of wrap their head around. But look, all that Legionella needs, it needs three things. It just needs food, shelter, and temperature. So the food's going to get from natural occurring amoebas and water. The shelter it gets from being inside the pipes that, with stagnant water, is going to get the biofilm. And then the temperatures, 70 degrees, it's alive. 80 to 120, it's thriving. Anything outside of that window, I'm not saying it's dead, but I'm saying it doesn't grow as fast. But yeah, man, for what it's worth, it likes the same temperatures that we like. So if we can exist there, it can exist there. So it's a little bit complicated to kind of. Well, no, that's not what to say. It's not this complicated. It's just a little bit frustrating actually when people kind of turn a blind eye to it. But it's everywhere. Adam, you mentioned a lot of them, but also in ASHRAE 188, the ASHRAE Standard, it also mentions decorative fountains that you walk outside, like the Bellagio Tower or the Bellagio fountains in Vegas. Car washes are another source. Respiratory therapy equipment that we don't get to talk about. These are all closed loop plumbing, so there is a lot more to it than the cooling towers. But with that being said, speaking of cooling towers, we got somewhere to go. Hello, everybody. We are here at a beautiful job site in Hamilton, Ontario. I'm here with a good friend of mine who's going to walk us through a Legionella test. So go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. My name is Brian with HGTS, and today we're going to be going over our Legionella rapid test kits that HGTS can provide for us, for you. Today what we have is our components. I'm going to briefly describe what components we have here to complete the testing. So first thing we have is our test beaker. This is where we're going to grab our water. We're going to hold it in here and pull the sample from this area. Syringe. This is where we draw our water out. Obviously it is marked here for our amount so we know how much we're pulling out. Our filtration strip. This is the heart and soul of the test kit. This is where the water filters through to get our testing done accurately. Small syringe. We use this to apply the water onto our test kit. Within 25 minutes, we get a test results in our screen with a couple of bars at the control and what strand, if there is any, present on the test strip. We've taken our sample from our cooling tower. This cooling tower does already have water in the basin that we're able to take the water from. We also do testings on not just cooling towers, but any sort of potable water that you may have around your facilities, holding tanks, fountains, and so on. If you are pulling water from a holding tank, make sure that you run the holding tank water, let it, a little bit of water come running out so that you're not picking up any of the sediment that might be in the bottom of the tank. You want to make sure that you have nice clean water. So for today though, we're just going to be pulling from the cooling tower. So you take your beaker, you want 2 ounces of water, pretty straightforward. And now we have our sample ready to go. So we're just about to start our testing of the water that we've taken from the cooling tower. just a couple of things to make sure that we are aware of when we're doing our testing. With our filtration strips here, we want to make sure that our end cap is on nice and tight. We want to make sure that the saturation of the filter strips is completed and it drains out through the bottom. And when we are completing this, we are going to attach a syringe to the filter. And when you depress the water in through the filter, you want to make sure that that's going on for about 30 seconds. You don't want to just push it through as fast as possible. Allow those filter strips to get fully saturated to complete the test properly.
We sampled all that water from inside the tank here. We took this full thing. You ran the entire thing through this filter.
Correct.
And there was the remnants that was left in this filter. That's where we take our sample from.
That's correct.
Oh, interesting.
That's
So
correct.
not that it had a ton to do with the moving of the water from the tank to here. This is where everything is captured. This is the money piece.
This is the heart and soul.
Now
of
I
the
understand what you're
piece.
talking about.
Yes.
Okay. And the
Right.
sample here is going to collect any sort of like, and you said it detects a couple different strands of Legionella?
It does. So it collects the SG1, which is the one that is more associated with Legionnaire's disease.
Okay.
It also picks up on SG2 through 15, which is more common with Pontiac fever.
And how many times have you had Pontiac fever?
Fortunately, none.
I've had Pontiac fever probably about 4 times
Yeah.
in my career.
That's enough.
That's enough. And what we're going to do after our 25-minute period has come and gone, we're going to use our testing strip and we're going to compare it to our scorecard. The scorecard does tell us what strand it is, and it also tells us the amount that is present in the water sample. Obviously, lighter is less to darker is more.
Perfect. So what we're going to do is we're just going to stand here silently for 25 minutes while you at home watch us do nothing. Or Kyle might just edit it out and do 25 minutes starting right now. All right, Brian, so this is our lid off our cooling shell that we kind of hopped into here. It looks like either we are recreating the skin layer for Mossman from Masters of the Universe, or something is kind of growing here. I'm just going to break down for me. What are we looking at? And is this safe? Is this dangerous? What's the story?
So at this point, what we have here is there is like a biofilm, an algae, maybe a mold that's growing on this access door right now.
Yep.
If it's growing on the access door, then most likely it's going to be growing in various areas of your cooling tower. So the best way for us to protect this from affecting our water is 2 ways. 1, cleaning regularly on your cooling tower. Just a simple wash with a power washer, getting the algae, getting the mold, getting all that sediment out of the cooling tower is going to result in a cleaner overall tower. And if we have an overall clean tower, then we're going to make sure that the biofilm is not attacking our water treatment. And that would be the second way of protecting. Water treatment is obviously one of the best defenses against water contamination, Legionella, and so on. So make sure if you have a cooling tower or an area that has water being stored, moving through your facilities, have it tested, have it maintained with a water treatment company to make sure that this biofilm doesn't accumulate to get into your held water or your tank water.
Yeah, love it. So if you've ever attended one of my Legionella seminars, we know that Legionella lives on a tripod. It needs temperature, it needs shelter, it needs food. This biofilm that we have here kind of does a double dose. This is a shelter and it's also a food source. And the temperature inside these things is usually, at that, well, for what it's worth, Legionella likes the same temperature that we do. So if you're at a reasonable temperature that you can survive, it can live there too. So yeah, this is a prime little breeding ground for the Legionella bacteria to kind of grow and multiply.
And if you're not on top of it, it happens like that. Next thing you know, your whole system's traveling through all the pipes that we have around here. Now we got to drain our whole system and make sure we come in with fresh and clean.
I love this. So, well, not that I love it. That's the wrong term. Kyle, edit that. We were talking also, you and I, a little bit earlier. Let's just say that we had Legionella in this system. We'll find out here in a couple of minutes. The plumes on these cooling towers, I'm not saying it's the only place that it lives, but it's, definitely a place that it lives. The plumes on the cooling towers, it can travel.
Yes.
And we've had some cases of Legionella like going
Almost 10 kilometers.
10 kilometers.
Yeah, once it gets up out of that building into the airstream, unfortunately, everywhere in that 10-kilometer area is potentially affected by it. So it just goes to show the onus of keeping your water tested and clean so that the liability, if something does happen, doesn't come on us.
Love it. Yeah, so again, the liability of a Legionella test is on the building owners. And that's across Ontario. Quebec's a little bit different, but for what it's worth, everyone in Ontario, the building owners are the ones responsible to make sure that they get it tested, get it out, and get it cleaned. But that's not to say that not every single person is here to help you. We are absolutely ready to, you pick up the phone, give us a shout, we can point you in the right direction. friends like Brian. We can give you guidance, we can give you advice as to where to look for it, how to treat it, stuff like that. You're not alone. If you're not familiar with it, it's okay. We're here to help, so just, call somebody. We're all here to help and get you pointed in the right direction.
Perfect.
Okay, we have just passed the 25-minute mark, and we've had quite an interesting little adventure here. I'm not quite too sure how to put this one into words, but we might have a positive test in our hands. We're still reviewing a couple of things, checking the documents for it. I'll let Brian explain a little bit more about what we see, and you can kind of come in here and have a look at the test and where it lines up. But yeah, this got interesting.
So as we can see here, we have our control line, and then beside our control line, there is a very faint red line that I've matched up with our scorecard that is lining up, I believe, with the number 5 there. You can see it's, even though it's a very faint line, it is there, it is present, and that obviously indicates the color of the line, how thick that or how deep red that color is, shows us how much of the Legionella could be in the water. So this is reading at the 5, which would put us probably around the 8,000 mark.
That was pretty exciting. We got a we got a sign of life here in this test that we just did. Now, not saying it's any panic for immediate concern right now, but it is a cause for further investigation because there is some signs of a bacteria growth in here that does lead to the Legionella strain. So why don't you kind of unpack for us kind of what the next steps might look like based on what we've seen here today?
Perfect. Okay, so since we did have a positive reading, a few steps that we want to take right away. We want to do further testing. So we're going to take a culture test to a lab. They're going to dissect that a little bit more. They're going to look into a little bit more of how much and the strands, a little bit more detail than what our rapid test does provide.
Okay.
In the meantime, a few steps that we want to do proactively to make sure that our neighborhood is protected is, first things first, let's make sure the fan is not operating, because that fan is going to push any of that air, any of that condensation, wet air into the neighborhood.
Yep.
So we want to protect people that way.
For those watching, we did turn the fan off. All good.
The second item that we want to do here is we want to get our water treatment company or maybe the owner, the business operator, to do a flush, right? The water that we have in there right now, we know has something in it. So let's get that water out, get new water in, and that would be step 1 towards making sure that we're taking the right steps.
Yep.
From there, we would want to talk to the Ministry of Health, let them know that there was something found and that these are the steps that we're doing. And then we would obviously work with them in their advice on what to do from there.
I really like the fact that, yeah, we have something here, but I like the fact about these tests, and, every building owner should be contacting the HCTS or someone to do some water testing. I like the fact that there's no need to panic just yet. Let's have a look at it. Let's see where we are. But yeah, we just get ourselves pointed in the right direction because this can happen to anybody at any time. So this is why we do this stuff. Thanks for sharing the journey with me, Brian, here today. What an adventure. Everybody else watching at home, this is just how easy it is to test and how easy it is for this stuff to possibly show up as a maybe in your file, or in your job site. So never stop testing, and yeah, this is the world we live in. Thanks for sharing the journey with us.
Thank you.
Before we kind of wrap this show up, I do want to just take a 2-3 minutes and really address ASHRAE Standard 188, because a lot of times the rules and details of who's responsible for what gets lost. So ASHRAE Standard 188, it incorporates a couple things that are important for the engineering community. Number one is a design review, meaning that when you are designing your building, you're designing your plumbing system, it's your responsibility as the engineer to kind of identify some potential problem areas. So you see a dead leg down in a janitor's closet, you're like, okay, when you're talking to the building owner with regards to maintenance, make sure that one's addressed, that must be ran hot water once a week for 60 seconds or something along those lines. But design reviews are in your purview as engineers. But the standard puts the onus of this thing on the building owners. And Kevin, you and I have had lots of chats about this, that, as much as we wish we could get building owners to test, once a month, which is technically what you should be doing, is testing once a month. You can't, force everybody to do anything, but the onus is on those building owners to do that. They're the ones that at the end of the day have the responsibility and the legality behind that one. What also was on the engineering purview is something called a site survey. So the site survey is going to be looking for three separate things. Number one is a central hot water system, building over 10 stories tall, and whether or not that building is healthcare. If any one of those any one of those boxes is checked, then the building owners should be required to create a building task force. The building task force is then responsible for understanding the building, making sure that the maintenance for the building is getting done on the cooling towers, on the piping, on the whatever there is. But that's how the standard is written. It's not saying that the engineering community is responsible, but Aaron, like you said, this is our world. This is the world that we play in. So if we can give the best information we can to the building owners during during the handoff, everything gets a little bit better. And my last note here is that just so that we're all on the same page, and this podcast goes coast to coast, every province has a couple different standards specifically for the cooling towers. Like, for example, Quebec has a designated, how do they word this? You can't keep water in the cooling towers in Quebec. You must flush them. There's no reservoirs are allowed. But Ontario, you are. But it says that with the caveat that you must flush every 30 days. Kevin, does that get done every single time?
Everybody does that, right?
Everybody does
Never.
that.
I mean, if the cooling tower doesn't run in the winter, it gets drained. But cooling towers that run all year, it's the same water recirculating back through that tower,
100%.
which is wrong. Like you mentioned, every 30 days it should be flushed, but that doesn't happen. They don't want to, customers, they look at the bottom line with costs for chemical treatment, and they'd have to add extra chemical then, if they're flushing every 30 days. So it all comes down to the money that the company puts out, but money shouldn't be put ahead of public safety.
This disease has a fatality rate of 10%, like 10%.
Yeah.
That's a pretty high number. If you ask me, there's roughly 30,000 cases a year, meaning 3,000 people die a year of this completely preventable disease. So anyway, I'm going to get off my soapbox here. Now I've done a lot of talking here for a bit, and pretty much it for me here today.
I'd love to cut open a cooling tower and take a look inside. Have you done that before, Kevin?
I got pictures for you, Adam.
I'd love to see it. You and I have a lot of history with water heating and water heaters and stuff like that. We've cut water heaters open after years being installed, and they are just disgusting. You can't believe that you ever showered in the water that went through that water heater. And I imagine the cooling tower would be very similar.
Yep, very similar. Who has a hot tub?
Matthew does.
Yeah, well, you can get Legionnaires from hot tubs.
100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Adam mentioned that, these spas that you go to, yep, absolutely. You can get them from that.
Cruise ships. Cruise ships are actually one of the worst right now. I was just doing some research last week and found out cruise ships are. So I've actually got a new business that I've started, basically educating customers called Legionella Risk Academy. So I'm going to start pushing towards like cruise ships and, hot tub manufacturers as well to try to educate them on the risks of Legionella in those industries as well.
It's funny you mentioned that, because after I did that presentation and where I learned the hot tubs you can get it from, of course, it just scared the living daylights out of my wife. She was like, can we even use this thing anymore? What's going on? And anyways, we have a big UV protection system in our hot tub. But anyways, yes, Kevin, it's scary for sure, right?
It's just a good excuse to get it nice and hot.
Right.
Like it, Aaron.
You got to
I like
get it
very
over
much.
140, Matthew.
No problem.
That'd be pretty hot.
I want to thank you both so much for coming on. This was fun. Obviously, these conversations are going to continue offline, but thanks again for coming on. And I look forward to further conversations and opportunities within the different work you guys do to continue working together. So
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Huge
much
fan
for
of the
having
pod.
us
So
on.
huge fan of the pod. So it's an honor to be here.
Oh, right in the fields. That gets you a gold star, whether you want it or not. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Okay. Again, thanks, everybody. We'll see you. I know you both, so I'll see you around.
Yep. See you around. Thank you.
take care, guys. Thanks for listening.